Good morning, everybody.
All right. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Phillips, and on behalf of the Apprenticeship Illinois Committee of the Illinois Workforce Board, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Creating More Diverse, Equitable, and Inclusive Apprenticeships. This webinar will be recorded and is available with closed captioning. Your lines are all muted now, but we hope to take some live questions at the end. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. This webinar is one of 5 hosted by the Apprenticeship Illinois Committee as part of National Apprenticeship Week in Illinois. National Apprenticeship Week is a nationwide celebration that brings together business leaders, career seekers, labor, education institutions, and other critical stakeholders to demonstrate their support for apprenticeship. This week in Illinois, there are over 40 in-person and virtual events happening statewide, plus several national virtual events. Please check the Apprenticeship Illinois website for more details, and that website will go in the chat momentarily. The Apprenticeship Illinois Committee focuses on 4 important strategies: expanding apprenticeships geographically and into new industries, increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in apprenticeship, formalizing the statewide apprenticeship coordination between partnering state agencies in Illinois, and growing statewide capacity to provide apprenticeship opportunities to more job seekers and businesses. In Illinois, there is a significant gap for underrepresented populations in recruitment, retention, and successful completion of registered apprenticeships. Without changes that start at the apprenticeship or systems level, women, people of color, differently abled people, and other previously excluded groups will continue to have limited opportunities to compete for high quality jobs in sectors where the pathway might begin with an apprenticeship. We are thrilled to have such an esteemed panel this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Manny Rodriguez, who is the Executive Director of Revolution Workshop. Manny is a longstanding member of the Apprenticeship Illinois Committee, the chair of the committee's pre-apprenticeship work group, and a member of the IWIB State Workforce Board's Equity Task Force. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Take it away, Manny.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, everybody. I'm really just so delighted to have you all here today, bright and early on this Tuesday morning, to talk and have this very important conversation this morning. As Jen stated, I'm Manny Rodriguez. I'm founding executive director of Revolution Workshop. We're a pre-apprenticeship construction training program in the city of Chicago. I also have the honor of serving on our state's Apprenticeship Illinois Committee and chairing the pre-apprenticeship working group and serving on the Equity Task Force. So DEI issues are core to my value system and who I serve. We serve the underserved in our city and try to get them into the construction pathway. But as Jen stated, without very intentional changes about how apprenticeships are structured, how they're marketed, how they're exposed in news sectors that don't traditionally use apprenticeship as a means to training their workforce, we're going to continue to exclude people from these great family-sustaining career pathways. Today, we're going to hear, and I'm honored to be joined with some distinguished leaders, apprenticeship leaders, and we're going to have a discussion about how, changing apprenticeships to make them more inclusively marketed to diverse audiences, how their programs are focusing on retention and success differently, and how they are broadening apprenticeship types with employers who champion DEI efforts and can open new opportunities for previously, again, excluded individuals. With that, I would like to introduce you to our panel. Joshua Johnson, who's the director for the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning at Jobs for the Future, which was formerly the Wisconsin Apprenticeship Director. Josh, you'd mind giving a little intro to our group?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you, Manny. You make me feel esteemed when you say you're sitting with some esteemed guests. So thank you very much. And good morning to everybody. Definitely happy National Apprenticeship Week.
Michelle Velez, who's a business services manager with the Illinois Department of Human Services, Department of Rehabilitation Services. Michelle, can you give a little brief intro to the group?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Velez, and I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I've been employed with the state of Illinois for 13 years now, and I currently work with the Department of Human Services, Division of Rehabilitation Services, as a business services consultant, certified business engagement professional in the Workforce Development Unit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Michelle. Arthur, Arthur and I go way back, serving on the Illinois Apprenticeship Committee from its inception. So Arthur, can you give a brief intro about who you are and your organization?
Surely. My name is Arthur Bishop. I'm currently the Chief Program Officer for the SAFER Foundation, where our president and CEO is Victor Dixon. And just quickly, SAFER Foundation since 1972 has served annually about 5,000 men and women who have some type of arrest or conviction record. And I just want to just frame this here real quick. Underneath the stigma of a record, we found in our service provision that there are many talented, skilled men and women who have become valuable employees with our employer partners. And so we're thankful to be a part of this very important discussion and looking forward to the dialogue.
And last, but certainly not least, my partner in good trouble, Jane Valinga, Executive Director of Chicago Women in Trades. Jane, give us a brief intro, you and see.
Good morning, everybody. So Chicago Women in Trades, we were founded by tradeswomen 40 years ago this year to improve women's economic equity by increasing their participation in traditionally male-dominated jobs in the construction industry. Initially, we also work in manufacturing. To achieve this goal, we really pursue two strategies: the demand and addressing the demand and the supply. So we run training programs, a pre-apprenticeship program and a welding program. We also have a robust technical assistance program to help industry stakeholders build their capacity to recruit and retain women. And we also work on policy and advocacy initiatives with our good friends at Revolution Workshop these days, but nationally also. And anyway, we're a long way from solving this problem, and I'm glad you could all join us today.
All right. So let's just, now that you've been introduced to our distinguished guests, let's get right into it. And Josh, I'm going to start with you. First question I got for you is, both from your vantage point as Wisconsin's, apprenticeship director, and now as the director of the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning at JFF, can you share what you think are the most essential best practices in creating more diverse, equitable, and inclusive apprenticeships?
There's one key factor I believe that that really drives a lot of the conversation, and it really is around representation matters, right? We think about this, the ability to have true live representation and for people to see it. That is where the conversation gets started. Many times when we think about how come we're not finding diverse and inclusive individuals within the registered apprenticeship programs, many times it goes back to the fact that number one, they don't even know they exist. But number two, they can't see themselves in that program. And I think that is one of the biggest best practices, I believe, is you have to have that representation matters. In Wisconsin, prior to my departure, we had a campaign that really focused on that. You had an ad campaign going around where there were apprentices. They were either women or persons of color sitting at a desk, and they were in the forefront of the commercial or the advertisement. And what that did is that said to individuals who saw it that apprenticeship is for everyone. So, that representation matters really is a big deal. But then also, we think about best practices, it is reaching out to the CWITs of the world. They've been doing great work for many years and understanding, how to have those conversations to help women move forward, not only get into, but move forward within the construction trade. So, those are kind of the two that I think about is getting engaged with those organizations that do the work very well. So any employer that's on the phone, that's interested, get engaged with those organizations doing well. But more importantly, think about representation. When you're thinking about apprenticeship, you have to synonymously think about the fact that the apprenticeship workforce is dominated 91% by men, and then it's 58.8% by white. We're going to say white men, pretty close. Even if you only take off 1 or 2% for white women, but the apprenticeship workforce is dominated pretty much by white men. So there's representation issues there. If individuals don't think it's for them, they're not going to look into it and get involved in it.
Thank you, Josh, for that. My next question actually is for Michelle. And there's a myth out there that apprenticeships aren't for people with disabilities. And I have to fully admit that I was one of those individuals, having served in construction, that I thought that, there's really not a way that we can help folks with disabilities. But Michelle was the one that really challenged me on that thought. And we since have been able to have some success with placing folks with disabilities into the construction pathway. So Michelle, I would love for you to talk about your experience with working with Illinois employers who are inclusively embracing people with disabilities and how they value having an inclusive workforce.
Sure, thank you. Of the nearly 700 employers we've partnered with in Illinois, less than 10 have implemented disability programs into the workplace, but all of them are open to hiring our customers and working with our agency. One close employer partner of ours that stands out to me with this question, that is also DRS Employer Award winner for the past 2 years, is the Bazaar Inc., which is a family-owned business located in River Grove. The Bazaar Inc. implemented an inclusive program that launched in 2014. With this, they use inclusive hiring practices, change their onboarding process, catering to the needs and job functions of each individual, making sure they have the resources they need to succeed in employment, and an in-house training program. According to the Bazaar, opening the door to inclusion opened the door to them having a stronger recruitment and growth opportunities, greater retention and workplace productivity, purposeful work, and positive social change. The Bazaar's president, Brad Nardick, says implementing an inclusive program has been beneficial for the company, helping lower turnover and increase productivity rates and raised employee morale. What disability inclusion means to Brad is the chance to do meaningful work that benefits our company in both short-term and long-term, not just for us owners, but for people with disabilities. They want people with disabilities to successfully have careers there. Brad says people go there now wanting to work there, which has lessened their need to actively recruit. So for me, with apprenticeships for people with disabilities would be beneficial for employers to recruit, hire, train, and retain. People with disabilities are one of the largest minority groups in the country, are the largest untapped talent pool of potential workers, are able to participate and succeed in apprenticeship programs when they're provided with opportunities and support. They help organizations to build a strong and diverse pipeline of skilled workers, which is critical for companies to grow their business and compete in the global economy. And they can improve an employer's bottom line by reducing recruiting and training costs because they are productive, capable workers who tend to stay with their employer longer, showing loyalty and appreciation for the opportunity, increasing retention rates.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for sharing. Arthur, this next one's going to be for you. The Safer Foundation is, currently an apprenticeship intermediary and has been working to create more entry points for returning residents into apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship. Can you tell us some of the ingredients for successfully recruiting, but more importantly, supporting returning residents in pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs? And can you highlight a few challenges?
Sure. Good morning again. As I indicated earlier, since 1972, we have our mission has been to serve those who have an arrest or conviction record. And what we found and what we highlight is the fact that underneath that record, again, skilled, talented, diligent, and individuals who have a desire to change and a desire to be and have a positive impact, not only on with an employer, but on their community and on their families and so on. And so our efforts are strategic. We realize that when we get a grant or a contract, and they identify a number of participants that we have to serve, then we make sure that we have a strategic recruitment effort. And that effort includes not only what we call boots on the ground, and it was more prominent before COVID, but we're picking that back up now, but really going into the communities, talking to our community-based partners, marketing. We have a strong marketing team. So we utilize strategic marketing. We have our employers, go to their faith-based entities. And so we try to look into the community and inform them of the opportunity that we have in a particular program or in a particular training. Now, some of the things that we found and some of the ingredients that we found that have made our program successful, even though there are some challenges, is the fact that because a number of those men and women come to us and they do have some challenges, they do maybe even not even have the hope that they would have otherwise. And so we provide a holistic array of services, and they're provided by skilled, caring professionals, many who are individuals who have lived experiences themselves. And these services include, but are not limited to, case management, skill training, transportation support, stipends, substance abuse treatment, mental health services, remedial education. And then we also have a virtual service platform now, so that those individuals that aren't able to travel physically, to our offices in the various communities, and we have a virtual component to make sure that we're able to access those individuals. The other piece is our diligent effort to ensure, let me go back to the stipends, by the way. And many of those men and women that we serve that may be in an apprenticeship program, that may be 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, whatever the length, sometimes they're challenged to sustain themselves unless they have some type of financial or income support. And so the stipends are very important. The assistance with transportation to get to the locations are very important, so that they're able to sustain themselves and not be overwhelmed with the fact that I don't have money or I don't have resources to do what I need to do. In addition to that, we're working diligently to not only provide the pre-apprenticeship trainings, but then to have some avenue by which those individuals, when they leave the apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, are able to timely connect with apprenticeships, or if that not be the case, then timely get placed into employment. So again, that they can sustain themselves. We also provide OJT, or on-the-job training, through various grants. But the most part is that we realize there has to be a support system in order to sustain individuals to go through trainings and go through our program. And you mentioned you mentioned just some of the challenges, I believe, and if I can just touch quickly on those. And as we know from experience and also from research, many of the individuals that we serve face multiple barriers to re-enter the labor markets. But we believe that apprenticeships can be an avenue by which to help ameliorate those barriers, not in and of itself, but because of the complexities of some of the issues and challenges. It's very important that, again, those services that I alluded to and the supports that I alluded to, the case management and all of those type things that are provided, that we come alongside those that are participating in pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships so that they can sustain themselves and then ideally be placed into employment in a timely manner.
Arthur, thank you. And, I want to really, before I move on to Jane and ask her about inclusive marketing, I want to highlight, especially for any funders on this call, we do a great job of funding all the supports for pre-apprenticeship when somebody's unemployed. But what we need to remember is that these critical supports need to be happening when they're employed in their place and they're in the apprenticeship. I can't say that enough. I think it's a big miss by our funding and a gap in all of our funding. And I know Arthur and I know myself and I know Jane, we do a lot of work, supporting our alum of our programs when they're already hired, because our folks are starting from such a negative start position most of the time. And so that need is important. Jane and I focus on construction. We know that construction has a set of unique challenges. And so we have to be able to continue to support folks post. So I just want to uplift that and stop that right now and uplift that, Arthur, because I think that's a great point, that it's got to be continuous and it cannot just be looked at as, hey, here's the end of pre-apprenticeship and we've done our job. That will not lead to successful outcomes. With that, now let me start with Jane. Sorry, I had to just jump in there, Jane. I had to talk about that. Jane, CWIT's been a national leader on inclusive marketing practices within pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship. Can you tell us more about what inclusive marketing is and why it makes a difference? I think Josh touched a little bit on this, but I would love to get your perspective.
Sure. So I think I want to start a little bit by talking about why it's important to do it, first of all. So about 50% of the workforce is women, roughly 50% is women. But women make up only 10% of apprentices. And in the construction industry, it's even worse. It's 3.5%. So the reason for this is that most of these apprenticeship programs are in industries that are non-traditional for women. So construction, manufacturing, technology, all of that. So yeah, I feel like a lot of work needs to be done in order to break down the gender stereotyping and the occupational segregation that have kept women out of these positions. And that takes work, right? That doesn't happen it doesn't just happen, right? It takes work. And so you have to figure out how to target this message, where to find the women, how to engage them in your program. So I don't know exactly who we're talking to in terms of an audience, whether it's mostly training providers or employers. But we do have a website. It's womensequitycenter.org, which lists a lot of these resources that you can download for free. And of course, you're welcome to talk to us about customizing an outreach plan for you. But I think the important thing I want to say is that solving the problem of women's representation in apprenticeship is not a matter of setting up more programs, more apprenticeship programs in traditionally female-dominated occupations, because these occupations pay less than the traditionally male-dominated occupations. One of the examples we like to use is take a CNA and a carpenter. So they require basically the same level of education, although a CNA requires some additional training before, and a CNA is going to make $12 an hour, $13 an hour to start, whereas a carpenter here in Chicago makes $18 an hour to start. Flash forward 4 years, and that CNA is making $15, $16 an hour, where the carpenter is now making $50 an hour with full benefits and a pension. So it's really important for many reasons to get women into these jobs. It's a problem for women because women are overrepresented among the ranks of the poor, just as they're underrepresented in these industries. And it's a problem for the industry because the industry is ignoring half the talent pool. So one of the things I want to say is that that was last week, got a call from one of the most competitive, most desirable apprenticeship programs to tell me that in their 2 divisions, one of our students ranked #1. So, and that we had 8 people in the top 20 candidates. So, so that's obviously a benefit to that apprenticeship program, to have recruited those people who came out on top, right? So, so there are many reasons why women don't respond to these announcements. They don't see them. They don't think that the announcement is addressing them. They don't think they're qualified. They don't know why they should be interested. And and they've never seen another woman doing it. And, they obviously, you're not just looking for someone who wants to be a carpenter for a woman, you're also looking for someone who is not, who is able to see themselves as the only woman in apprenticeship class or the only woman on a crew. So that's a pretty narrow group. So the first thing you need to do is cast a wide net. You're not gonna be able to do one little thing and then nothing happens and you say, well, it didn't work. You gotta cast a wide net. I mean, we march in parades, for goodness sakes. I mean, whatever you can do, building relationships with community organizations, social media is really important. Go where the women are. Maybe it's the report card pickup day at the school. So just be creative about where you go, and then provide materials that include women. So we address women in the title, so it's not just a picture of a woman, but otherwise no reference. We put it on the top of the flyer, women, and then have some message and tell them why they should be interested. Did you know? And we have some sample flyers also on our site if you want to see what we're talking about. I think the other thing to do is identify a next step. So don't assume that women know anything about this career. So what is the next step? Are you going to have an information session? Are you going to have a field trip? Are you going to have a career fair? What is the next step for them to learn about these careers? We also have videos, and we have a little career education guide and other things that people we can distribute around town. People can pick up and learn about these careers. Whether they're qualified, what the benefits are, what the entry routes are, all very important for deciding what to do. We also do, our programs are women-only programs. So that creates a whole nother level of comfort with coming in. And I think if you have the opportunity to do something specifically for women, you will have an easier time recruiting them. We serve about 130 aspiring tradeswomen every year, and we have a waiting list. So there are plenty of women who want these careers if they know you're talking to them and you provide an opportunity for them in a safe space to learn the things they need to do to learn to have a level playing field with the rest of the applicant pool. And I think that someone else said this earlier, it's very important to have tradeswomen involved in doing this recruitment. So if you are a white man sitting at a table trying to recruit women of color, you're probably not going to have a lot of people come to your table. So, you want to engage as many success stories as you can in doing the actual recruitment. I think the other thing I want to say is don't give up. It takes time, it builds, you create some success stories, you put those out there, you attract more women and so on. And so you just need to have patience for this process. And I think the other thing I want to end with is word of mouth is critical, obviously. And so you need to think about what kind of experience are the women that you're recruiting having, right? So were they able to get into the apprenticeship program? Did they have equitable opportunity to work and learn in the apprenticeship program? How were they treated in the apprenticeship program? So, we have assessment tools on our website that can help you sort of take a look at the policies and the practices of your program. Are you inadvertently selecting women out because you have an experience requirement that maybe you really don't even need, And so I think it's important to look at all those things and make sure that women have equitable opportunity to enter, that the bar is not set artificially high for some reason, or people aren't advantaged in some way, that women or people of color may not have those particular qualifications. So I think that's, please visit our website. I've got a lot to say, so I'll end here so we can continue with the program. Thank you.
Jane, thank you for that. I mean, you're subject matter expert in this, so definitely wanted to give you some runway. But I also think that this marketing and recruitment strategies is part of a bigger issue, when we're talking about accessibility to apprenticeship. So I want to open it up to the other panelists to talk about, Jane's very focused on women in apprenticeship, but I'd like to hear, Arthur, Josh, from your perspective, Michelle, how are you, what have you seen as best practice strategies of recruiting people of color, again, returning citizens, other underserved populations, obviously, and folks with disabilities?
Sure.
I was going to say, just real briefly, when, Jane covered a lot, right? There was a lot there to really unpack, and she's right there. CWIT has been, right at the forefront of this work for many years. Some of the things that I've seen and that have been very successful, when you talk about creating pre-apprenticeship programs, and Manny, you're probably very familiar with this, as in the Illinois area. I don't know how Illinois and how they're separate than Wisconsin, so I'll speak to how they are in Wisconsin. One of the challenges that we gave to any pre-apprenticeship program that came before the council to be certified was that they had to have a direct connection to an apprenticeship sponsor. And what we were hoping there is that with that direct connection, they can tap into the populations that they serve, and that they can be minimally qualified to enter into that registered apprenticeship program. There's no guarantee that they're going to hire them in, but they're minimally qualified to get into the apprenticeship program. And for us, we looked at that as a tremendous best practice shared across the board for organizations. Many times organizations look to employers to create those opportunities, and they didn't see where they fit in, they didn't see where their space was. So we really worked with those organizations, show them, like, you all are the pivotal point between the potential apprentice and the industry. Trying to find ways to make sure we ensured that when the pre-apprentice was going through their program, that they helped them identify any drug issues, driving issues, schooling issues, anything that could stop them from moving forward. We challenge those pre-apprenticeship programs with us. There's many other best practices, when we really think about it. I can even go to the employers, right? We talk about employers, some of the stuff we did in Wisconsin, this is some of the stuff that we're doing now with JFF, is getting those employers to commit to be DEIA cognizant, right? Just know what it is and make a commitment that you're going to do better, or that you're going to start. Instead of it being a challenge, like, you're not doing this, be it much more, hey, this is what DEIA is all about. We'd love to have you a part of it. And for those companies and employers who are doing it great, they can be mentors to those other companies who are trying to come in and create a change. So there's various different, when we really think about it, there's various best practices kind of for each segment of the conversation. But I think those two right there, working with the employers, get them involved in the EIA efforts, explaining to them and supporting them in those efforts, right? I think about the apprenticeship from the regulatory standpoint. We always, we're going in and we're saying, hey, you're not diverse enough. Well, we had to step in Wisconsin and say, how can we help you become more diverse? Even here as the project that I'm leading now with JFF, that's the conversations with CWIT and some of our other partners, is help us create materials that are non-confrontational, so to speak, right? They get people to understand we're trying to help them, and we're not trying to come in and say, you're not doing it, right? It's easy to say that, but we want to help them. We want to help them move forward. But also the pre-apprenticeship aspect of it, creating those strong pre-apprenticeship programs that help reduce the barriers that an applicant will face when they get into the registered apprenticeship is another key best practice.
I echo what each panelist has said, and I just want to stick a pin in this point, is that our efforts over the years, the IWEB committee and the apprenticeship committee and the panelists and their organizations, this is not just an effort to have individuals feel warm and fuzzy. There are some impacts, some real life impacts, not only for the apprentice that goes through and successfully completes, but also for that employer then that received that trained, skilled individual. And I just looked at some data real quick, and that's the other part of marketing. We have to have effective data that's going to help folk understand that there's a real impact. There's a return on investment in hiring and expanding your net in terms of hiring individuals. And then the other part of it is that there are some facts and that I found that hiring an apprentice, it says in general, is a productive and effective way to grow talent. That's a message to employers. And then it says 86% of employers said apprenticeships help them develop skills relevant to that organization. 78% of employers said apprenticeships help them improve productivity. 74% of those employers said apprenticeships help them improve the quality of their product. And so I don't want individuals to walk away from this discussion thinking that we're trying to tug at their hearts. You know, there are some tangible benefits for employers. A number of our employers that we place skilled individuals that with said this, they said they are thankful because they found in Safer's instance, we're talking about people with criminal records. They're saying that they found that the individuals that came through our training, received certifications and credentials, became employees, were some of the most dedicated and most committed individuals that they have experienced. The other part of the employer partnership is good to talk to the CEO or the president, but the other part of this is twofold. Legislation and policy has to come alongside the effort. And then the hiring department, the HR department, is the critical department that we have to engage with to educate them, to enlighten them, and in many instances to provide technical assistance to help them understand the nuances of even interviewing a person in our instance with a criminal record, but then also the opportunity to have those supports that come along with all of our organizations. We don't just place an individual. That individual goes to an employer with supports, a team of professionals that come alongside that person when they are engaged and employed.
Thank you, Arthur. Michelle, I was going to give you, yep, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so at this time, we don't have a lot of data in DRS since we're really just beginning to focus on referring customers for apprenticeship programs. But we're really interested in starting to, recruit a lot of our customers now for more apprenticeship programs. Predominantly, most of our customers have gone through and received certifications and degrees, which DRS would pay for. But, college or a four-year degree really isn't for everyone immediately after high school or at all. So, and everybody learns differently. Some people learn easily by OJT. So we think this will be beneficial for a lot of our customers since apprenticeship programs combine OJT and related classroom instruction. And this would guarantee our customers employment. Sometimes it's a struggle where we could help our customers with, obtaining the degree, but then they really struggle to find the job afterwards.
Thank you, Michelle. Jane, I really want, you and I have been immersed in some of our frustrations around the lack of data. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that's and I think some of our panelists have touched on it right now, the lack of data and how that hurts us in terms of being able to make some data-informed decisions and pivots. Can you talk a little bit about that and some of the, things we've found in particular in our sector?
So for the construction industry, we could get Rapids data, so we can get data for people participating in apprenticeship programs, but it doesn't go quite far enough. Like, we can't really track an individual from entrance to completion. We don't know who's working and who's not working. All of the things that would, sort of indicate whether this was a successful participation in apprenticeship. But I think beyond that, we can't access data about people in the unions once they complete apprenticeship. That's very challenging. And the other thing is we can't collect good data on women's participation or any participation on even publicly funded projects reliably. And so, so if there isn't transparency, we don't necessarily have agreement on what the problem is. And I think when we're talking to our, our legislative partners, et cetera, we need to be able to clearly say what the problem is, that women aren't accessing publicly funded work, or only this many are, and then what is the retention rate? So in that is challenging and also makes it difficult to measure the impact of whatever solutions you put in place if you don't know what your baseline is. So that is a challenge, but I also feel like it's also patently obvious what the data is if you drive by a construction site. And so I also don't want to get hung up on data. We want the data so that we all know we're having the same conversation, but we know what the facts are, even without the data. And so, so we want to proceed with solution as well.
Thank you, Jane. I think the state of Illinois, we've been doing some really innovative stuff. With our marketing and our marketing committee, we just relaunched our whole website on Apprenticeship Illinois and our framework. But this is a part, this data piece is still one that we find, kind of challenging here at the state. And Josh, I kind of want to get your perspective. Again, Wisconsin seems a little ahead of the game of Illinois in some ways, especially in this. And I'm wondering, was data an issue for you guys? How did you kind of, solve that problem? If you can give some perspective on that.
I think that was the thing, is we really focused on, we didn't even get a chance to, once I became the director in 2019, and we were kind of like tilting some other windmills over first before we could start addressing data. We saw what the numbers were, and they stayed pretty stagnant. Right? Women in Wisconsin, women was 2% across the board. All the minorities, 8% across the board. That number really never changed. And the 2% number, I was like 2.8 or 3%, and that was like in the past 20 years with getting engaged in apprenticeship just in Wisconsin, right? That's just, when you think about the numbers, it's rough, right? You think about that, and I think that's what we went off of is the data that was there. But I agree, there needs to be better data shared. But there also, as a part of being better data shared, we have to be careful that we don't get buried in data, because it can create, being stagnant, but it also can create a lot of hurt feelings and people thinking like that, well, the work we're doing is not being recorded, because it's a big hill to climb. There's a very big hill to climb for us when we talk about underserved communities getting into apprenticeship, and we have to really start focusing on how we have those conversations and what resources and tools are provided out there. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing. I know that there is a center of excellence also that's focusing on data. So we're excited about finding out that data, try to get some true data. The challenge becomes too, with SAA and OA states, all the data in Rapids and the Rapids reporting system is extricating that data and knowing that those states who don't report in Rapids are putting accurate information in. So, there's some inherent challenges, I think, with data. Data is great. It tells a story, but it also creates fear for people too, or, creates, like I said, some hurt feelings about, what we're really doing. I think we just have to get away from that and understand that that data, when it's shared, it should help us shape what we're doing as we move forward, because that data is telling the story about what's going on out there.
Thank you, Josh. I think, I want to, in our last few minutes, and I want to be able to open it up to our group here. And please, I want to remind anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. But I really want to talk about some system level changes. Right now we have different fundings and NOFOs or RFPs that go out, and I would like to get kind of a viewpoint from, again, Arthur and Jane in particular, about how you think there could be some changes in how we disperse some of these monies so that we can support our pre-apprentices better. I think both of you touched on it in your remarks, but I think it would be helpful to highlight that specifically where you think some specific things need to be done so we can better serve, again, these underserved populations. Whichever one wants to take
Yeah,
it. Arthur, you want to take it first?
just a couple of thoughts, and we've talked about this in our meetings as a committee. And I'm reminded of years ago when I was a youngster that in almost every Chicago high school, there was a trade or there was some type of apprenticeship, and those things have simply disappeared, it appears, right? They have. And so advocacy and marketing and legislation and those type of things to get apprenticeships and trades back into our school. Not everybody has a desire to go to college, right? And so I know we're working diligently on that. And I think that's a big piece because that's where the young men, young ladies are, and we need to catch them as soon as we can. Another thing is the collaboration with the faith-based organization. Many have strong youth programs, youth ministries, and in addition to the faith part, but then also the work and the career aspiration part. And so how do we collaborate with them? And then lastly, for the city of Chicago, for instance, we had a wonderful experience with the Chicago Transit Authority, CTA Second Chance Program. And I think that's another avenue by which we can begin to really have some conversation, which have began, about how do we expand the opportunities in different city agencies, that will allow individuals to experience apprenticeships in the various city agencies.
Jane, you want to tackle that bigger systems question?
So first of all, I want to just support what you had said earlier about retention. And I think in the construction industry, you don't just get a job and that's it. You're job seeking all the time, and those folks need support. And then we want to try to help them move up the ladder. So we do a lot in terms of retention, from supporting women's committees in the different unions to paying for additional certifications for people, providing mentorship, providing workshops and referrals for career advancement stuff. So I feel like that's important work. And I think we did a survey of carpenters a few years ago, and only 51% at that point had worked 9 months or more in the previous year. And then when we asked the question, was there anything that made you want to drop out of your program or drop out of the union? And almost everyone who answered the question said some version of discrimination in hiring as being the reason why they were discouraged. And I do feel like as long as people are working and you're able to string enough work together to support yourself, that you can deal with a lot of the other stuff that you encounter. But if you're half the time unemployed, it's very difficult. And so I would say that was a gap in the funding opportunities that have come up over the past little bit. I think the other thing generally is, a closer connection to employment opportunities. So I think if we put a lot of money into training, like around the Capitol bill and so forth, we should have a real clear path to employment also created through that mechanism. So I think that's we would really like to see the state have goals, diversity goals for these projects, and be able to put in place the mechanisms to achieve them. So that's, I think that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. There is a question in the chat, and I want to uplift it now because I think it's an important one. Melissa Beach. I hope I said that name right. But as a CBO, how can we get involved and ensure that we are able to get our clients these opportunities? And how do we collaborate with these programs? Arthur, Jane, you want to take a stab at that? And then
Yeah.
I'll toss it to Josh and Michelle.
Yeah, but I think what we're doing now, and from what I've done as a representative of the Safer Foundation, become part of this very valuable and important Illinois Workforce Innovation Board, and then the Apprenticeship Committee, and then those committees are comprised of individuals from across a large swatch in terms of the experiences, the organizations they represent, and so on. And then the other piece is not just to meet, because I continue to emphasize our policy and advocacy department has been critical in helping change legislation and laws, because legislation and laws have to come alongside of the other things that we're talking about. Because if it's law, ideally, then people will be obedient to the law. And then the collaboration of resources, collaboration on grants, the writing of grants so that we can write each other, let's say, into grants so that we can use each other's gifts and skills in a partnership and a collaboration. And then those are things, a couple of things that I would just emphasize.
Jane?
So tell me the question again.
She was asking how she's a CBO, how can they get involved and ensure that their clients have these opportunities? How do we collaborate with programs?
So in terms of, we run a couple of training programs, a welding program more geared toward manufacturing, and our pre-apprenticeship program for construction. We would love to talk to you if you have people you would like to connect to these programs. And I can put our phone number in the chat, but Chicago Women in Trades, please reach out. We do information sessions every week. So.
And Melissa, I want to just uplift, Jennifer put apprenticeshipil.com. That is a tremendous resource right now. I'm feeling much better about the website since the relaunch. And I really think I would encourage you to look into that website and there will be information there. As a pre-apprenticeship program, and I think Josh, you spoke about this in your remarks a little bit about the importance of pre-apprenticeship. We need, to work, pre-apprenticeship programs need to work with the community, right? They need to be collaborating, to Arthur's point. It needs to be collaboration. And I can speak on Revolution Workshop. We work with over 60 different community-based organizations on the west and south sides of the city to recruit our folks. And it's important because, again, that kind of collaboration is key, because we've talked about a lot of the challenges here today at a high level. But when we had another hour, we could just talk about the challenges about, having our participants successfully complete. But what's powerful about a collaboration between a CBO, you're helping your clients with a variety of different services. If we're both having the same mission and we're both working on eliminating those barriers together, you're going to have a better outcome. And so I really want to hear that. I really want to uplift collaboration. I really want to uplift that. Please search out these resources. We're trying to develop them. Jen is showing you guys some of this now. There's additional resources I want to highlight here. There's links to everything that we kind of were talking about at a high level. And so definitely would encourage you to reach out, and our contact information, Jen, right, is going to be sent out too. So, again, you kind of got to hear a little bit of what we do. And please, I would just strongly encourage you to reach out to us. And even if we're not the right person, we might be able to put you in the right direction. I would also uplift that in Illinois, we have a system of navigators. And in the navigators, regional navigators in our state do have access to these groups and programs. So I would encourage you to look for your navigator in your region and make sure that you work with that individual. I can actually see a couple of the navigators are on this call today. I want to uplift that because that's an important part of our framework here in Illinois, is that we had these navigators just for the purpose of your question.
And
Go
I was
ahead,
going to
Josh.
jump
Go
in
ahead.
there. I was going to
Mhm.
say, as we talk about, and I think I put the comment in there, it's to work to reach out to the apprenticeship office. Many times the resources that are available, the apprenticeship office knows about, and they can direct you to a CWIT, or they can direct you to Manny's program. They can provide you with that connection. But definitely if you have a direct connection, that's key. But many times they have those resources. Same thing was in Wisconsin. They had the apprenticeship navigator. We had the apprenticeship training representative who worked with the employers. And then I brought on apprenticeship navigators who worked with the people. And that's where you have to create that connection. And I can say, and everything everyone is saying on here is 100% on point. The apprenticeship system, unfortunate as it may sound, it was never built for people. It was built for employers. And now we've realized employers need people. And how do we get them people? So now it's trying to like turn this ship, the apprenticeship, to say, okay, how do we engage with people? And how do we get people knowledge to build their knowledge enough to know apprenticeship is there? And that's a challenge. And reaching out to your apprenticeship stakeholders, reaching out to other CBOs and asking if they even know about apprenticeship, reaching out to the apprenticeship office. You got a great state director there, Kim Jones, who's around, as well as some of her staff. I mean, there's ways of doing it. And I think the most frustrating part, so I will share frustration with probably some of the folks on here, many times we just don't know how. We don't know what it is, and we don't know how to get our customers, our clientele connected. Or we don't feel like it's actually an opportunity that they can get in, that they are available for, which even makes it more frustrating.
And can I just make a quick comment on the data piece and tied into what Joshua and Jane and others have said, is that the data piece, we also have to be reminded that the success stories, that whether it's small or whether it's many, that we be able to uplift the success stories, which we are doing, I know, on our website, the apprenticeship website, but make sure that we effectively use data that shows the positive outcomes and uplift that, so that there are those who see that, realize that there indeed are good things that come out of the apprenticeship programs, hiring an apprentice, and so on, so that those success stories doesn't get overrun by maybe a higher percentage that may be a negative data piece.
Manny, can we let Joshua give a quick shout out for the JFF, his event on Friday? I think I have it up on the screen if people can see it.
Yeah, we pulled it up on the screen, so definitely go ahead, Josh. Your floor.
Hey, thank you very much. So we're really excited to announce the Modern Apprenticeship, or Modern Apprenticeships for a Modern Age. We're holding an employer roundtable on Friday with USDOL Secretary Marty Walsh in attendance, as well as 5 or 6 employers from across the country who are going to come together and have a conversation to talk about apprenticeship and DEIA efforts. We'll also be launching the DEIA Pledge, which after this week, we will start to engage with employers who will be proactive and who are interested in signing the pledge, whether they're already doing DEIA work, or if they just want to get involved and start to do it, or if they'd like to know how to do it better. We want to get all employers involved in that conversation to move the DEIA efforts forward here at JFF and in our Diversity Inclusion Center. So please feel free to reach out, and I know USDOL has posted it. I believe Apprenticeship Illinois has liked it on LinkedIn. It's everywhere out there. Please feel free to join us and hear some employers from across the country on how they're addressing DEIA efforts in their industry. And here's some great words from our DOL Secretary, Marty Walsh, talking about it.
Joshua, thank you. And I also just threw it in the chat, the registration link in the chat for anyone who wants to get directly there.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Just a quick, this is what you're seeing on the screen now is the landing page for National Apprenticeship Week. As I mentioned in the introduction, there are over 40 events happening in person and virtually this week. This is your go-to one-stop for finding the schedule of events. And as we mentioned in the beginning, there are 3 additional webinars happening later this week. We'd encourage everybody to attend. This webinar will be recorded and posted, and these slides, including the resources that we showed you and the panelist information, will be all up online probably by the end of the day. Manny, thanks for letting me do a little commercial.
No problem. And I just want to thank everybody because we're at time. Thank you for joining us today in this very important discussion. As you all can see, an hour is not enough time to talk about DEIA issues in apprenticeship. I think my panelists and I could go on for another, at least a couple more hours to go into it. But I think you're seeing some best practices, and I would like to uplift, the importance of working with pre-apprenticeship, the importance of working with our navigator system, the importance of working with employers. They are your customer too. It can be done in partnership. It doesn't have to be adversarial. I love that line. So, I hope you guys walked away learning something. Again, please, I encourage you, look at those resources that Jen posted. And I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for dedicating the time this morning. And thank you all.
You all.